Okay, welcome to tutorial number 2. Today we are going to be talking about this scene here specifically, this like rock that has this sort of wave that goes through it and then shoots out a little water droplet. It's a pretty simple setup, not a whole ton of crazy revolutionary stuff, but it's you might learn something. Also I apologize for my really loud aircraft carrier computer fan. I don't know what the deal is, but it's super loud, and as I start working it's probably going to get louder and harder to hear me, so I'm sorry about that. There's not really a ton I can do about it. So with that being said, let's get started. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is create a... let me get rid of this stupid thing up here. Hide this. Alright, so I used Forester to create some rocks. So if you go up to plugins, Forester, I'm going to click Forester Rock, and then it makes this like super low poly rock, and you can kind of change the subdivisions here to make it more. You can randomize the seed a little bit, you can scale it. I kind of like this. It's nice to just get a quick rock or whatever. You could use a sphere, you could use some model of a rock that you found somewhere, or any other shape really. I just liked this because it kind of gave me a little bit of control over what it was going to look like. So I'm going to make the subdivisions a little higher, something like that for now, and then let's make the scale a little longer in X, maybe a little more in Y, make it a little beefier. So I don't really remember exactly what my settings were, but I just kind of played around with some of this stuff, and you can make it more, give it more turbulence and less whatever, make it however you want it. So cool. With that, I hit C on the keyboard and I just flattened it. Okay, so the basis of this effect comes from the plane effector. So if you go to MoGraph, effector, plane, where are you? Right up here. So you probably used this with cloners and what have you a bunch, but you may not know that you can actually use it as a deformer. So if you make it a child of your geometry and you come over to deformer and change the deformation mode to point, then it affects all the points. So then what I can do, let me zero out the Y. The Z is the one that you want. That's going to make everything push out. So we're going to push everything out uniformly, I don't know, let's just say 70 centimeters. Now we don't want it to push out uniformly. We want to use a fall off to make it appear like there's a ripple falling through it. So let's go with the box field, and we're going to make this taller and wider, and also wider this way. And then what we want to do is change the contour mode to curve, and then change the inner offset, kind of move that downward so it gives us a nice smooth fall off. So now when I move this, it looks like there's a ripple coming through it. So it's simple as that. Basically all I'm going to do is just animate this from one side to the other. So the plane effector, let's see, parameter, I want to maybe make this a little bit more, something like that. Kind of play around with it till it looks right. Okay, and then I just took this and let me make my frames per second 24, change this to like 120, give myself 5 seconds here, and then I want this to start, because I'm going to have another rock collide with it, so let's make it start like 24 frames in. I'll have the box field start here, and then come out to like 72. Oh, come on, computer, it's doing this autosave. Okay, and then have it go like that. Let's see what that looks like. Probably like crap. Yep, like crap. So that's the basis of our effect. Now we're going to add a few little things to make it look a little bit better. So something that might help could be a delayiformer or delay modifier. So let's change this to see what it does with just smooth on the default. Much better, a lot smoother. Maybe make this like 30, see what that does. Doesn't feel quite so jerky. And then let's add another one, and let's change this one to spring, and maybe make this max. Let's see what that does. Maybe a little too springy, so maybe like 30, see what that does. Better. 20. I don't want it to be like super ripply. Cool. That is the basis of our effect. So then, other things that I might want to do would be to, let's see, I could maybe do a smoothing on this, because right now you see the geometry like right in here gets all pinched and mangled. That's not going to look that great. I mean, the way that I have it timed, I kind of retimed everything and did this sort of speed ramp thing in my final piece, so you don't really see it as much, but I think one thing I did was I came up here and I added a smoothing deformer. And that gets rid of a lot of that stuff, but unfortunately it gets rid of a lot of the detail too. So I think you just need to kind of play with the strength a little bit. Let's see. It's a little better. Maybe make the stiffness like 50. I think the higher the stiffness, the more of its original shape it retains, and the lower is the stiffness, the more smooth it's going to be. So let's make it like 85 or 65, something like that for now. We'll see how that looks when we go to texture it here in a second. Cool. So that's basically how I did that. Now, one other thing I wanted to do was I also wanted, as the ripple came through, I wanted the texture of the rock to change, and I also wanted to like grow some moss and stuff on here. So what I did for that was I came up to the rock, went into point mode, I selected everything, I hit V on the keyboard, and then I go to select, and I go set vertex weight, and just keep it at 0 and hit enter. So right now I've created a little vertex tag up here, and it's telling me that I have no weight on here. Now, one of the cool things about the vertex map tag, if you click on it, you can click this use fields button, and it allows you to use fields to dictate where the weight is going to be. Now, if you're not familiar with vertex tags, these are awesome. I use these things all the time. They're super useful, and I'll show you why here in a sec. But the red color means that there is no weight, and when you see a yellow color, that means that there is 100% weight. So one thing we can do is we can take this, we can use the box field that we've already set up with our plane effector, and just drop it in there. So now, wherever the ripple is going to be, there's going to be 100% weight. And we can use that for our texture, and we can use it for our clones that are going to be like growing on here. So first, why don't we start with how to use it for the texture. Now I'm not going to go full in depth on like exactly what textures I used. I'm just going to show you the principles of how I did this. You can use your own textures for this. But let me just make a Redshift material. I will throw that on there. And then let's come into here. And let me just open up Redshift here, the render view, so you can just kind of see what I'm doing. So I don't even need a light in here right now. You can just see what's happening. So let's just use colors for now. So I'm gonna hit Control C on the keyboard or Shift C. I use this all the time just to pull up this little dialog box. I'm gonna use a color absolute, and I'm gonna change it to, let's say, white, and then I'm gonna grab another one, and I'll change this one to, let's say, red for now. Okay, and then I'll use a color mix. And you know what? The color mix, I forgot, comes with colors that I could have just picked in here, so I probably don't even need these color absolutes anymore. But I've already made them, so let's just plug them in anyway. Okay, and then let's plug that into the diffuse color. Now right now, it's just showing up as 100% white, because by default, the top color of a color mix is what shows through. And right now, there's no mix amount that's defining where the red might show up. So to do that, hit Shift-C and go Vertex, and you want this Vertex attribute. And what this allows you to do is take your Vertex tag and drop it in there, and then you can use that as a mask. So check this out. If I hit, my shortcut is Control-Shift-C, I can just put this right into the output. You can see that the white part is where my 100% weight is, and the black part is where there's no weight. So I can use this as a mask. So just drop this into the mix amount, and there you go. Pretty cool, right? So I can kind of scrub. I can change this color to be whatever I want. Let's make it green or whatever. I can also, another thing I can do is I can drop down a ramp and I can sort of make this stronger. I can pinch this in a little bit, make it a little more defined. So I could do like, make it more harsh like that. So there's a really harsh divide, or I can kind of drag these away and feather it out a little bit. So you have a little more control like that. So right now this is just colors, but the way that I used it was I used it as in a material blender. So let me get rid of these for now. So let's say I have this material, and I'm just going to use some presets here just to kind of quickly show you what I'm doing. So let's say I want, you know what, I'll just keep this as let's make this like a darker gray. Okay, and then I'm going to click and drag and make a new material, and let's make this one gold, or copper. Let's do copper, because I think that's what I actually used. Then, you can use a material blender. So it's the exact same thing as a color mix, except for this is for mixing materials together. So I'll put this one into the base color, and then I'll put my gold one into my layer one color. And then I'll take my little mask that I've made with the Vertex map, and I'll put that into layer one blend color and connect this to the output, and voila, there you go. Now you've mixed two materials together. So all I did was I used, the top material was sort of this rocky material that I kind of colored white, and then the middle part material, I think I used a gold, just like that. So that's pretty much how you do that effect. Now let's talk about how to do the growing on part. So I like to use the matrix object instead of the cloner, just because it's a lot faster for rendering. You can render like hundreds of thousands or millions of clones, and it's not that big of a deal. Whereas if you use a cloner, it's just a lot slower. So let's drop down let's go Redshift, Objects, Matrix Scatter. And then we want to change the mode to Object. Where are you at? Okay, and then we want the object to be our rock. Now right now, so there's only 20 clones, let me make like 22,000. It's scattering them uniformly. I only want them to appear in the area that I have in the middle here, right? So let's see if I can do that. I think I did it by making it, I think I can drag my Vertex map in there. No, that's right, that didn't work. Okay, so I tried that last time and I wasn't able to get that to work. So what I actually ended up doing was I made another plane effector. So I click on my matrix object, make sure it's selected, go to MoGraph, Effector, Plane, and I don't want to affect position. What I want to affect is scale, right? So what I want this to do, I want it to be uniform, and I'm going to make it -1. And what that's going to do is it's going to shrink down all of my clones down to 0, so you can't see them anymore. So they're still there, you just can't see them anymore. Now I don't want that to happen everywhere. I only want that to happen outside of this box, so that it appears like the clones are only growing in where the ripple is. So again, I can come into my fall off, and I can use that same box field that I set up earlier. I just drag it in, right? Why isn't this working? Invert. Let's see what is happening. Oh, that's why. Invert. Let's see. Oh. What is happening here? Okay, I figured it out. So, I forgot there was a step I did because I had this same problem last time, and it's been a while since I've made it, and I don't remember what my solution was, but now I remember. So, we've got our rock, we've got our matrix object, so we want to scatter it on objects, and the object is our rock. There's all of our stuff. Okay, back to where we were. Alright, now what we're going to need to do, since this Forester rock has like a smoothing and a bunch of delays on it and stuff like that, you kind of see how it doesn't really, the matrix isn't really following the object very well. It kind of cuts through it. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to bake our rock geometry into keyframes. It's really easy to do. I use this a lot. It ends up solving a ton of problems. Whenever there's like something that's not working like this, it helps to just bake it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Window, Dope Sheet, Timeline Dope Sheet, and then you grab your rock or whatever it is you want to bake, and you drag it in. I guess that's already in there. Click on it, go to Functions, Bake Objects. And the main thing you want to make sure that's checked is this PLA, which stands for Point Level Animation. So what that's going to do is it's going to take all the movement of the points on this geometry, all that wavy ripple movement, and it's going to turn those into actual keyframes. So we won't be able to adjust it after this. So you want to make sure you get your wave in a way that you like it first before you do this, because otherwise this is kind of a destructive method of working, but it solved my problem. So I clicked PLA, Scale. I just kind of do click all of them and click all parameters, and then just click OK. And it'll take a sec to bake. And the nice thing about it is that it makes you a copy automatically. So your original one is saved untouched, so you don't need to worry about making a copy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable all this stuff, and I'm going to hide my original rock. So then, now this one, I can disable these. I can just disable all this stuff. I don't need it anymore because you see I have all these keyframes down here. So I can just go like that. It's kind of nice, right? So now that these are keyframes, now this effect will work better. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our matrix object and we need to replace the object with our original Forester rock with the new baked copy. So now you'll see those will follow the surface. That is what we want, right? Cool. Okay, so now we need to go back and make it so it looks like it's only appearing where the ripple is. So again, we go to the matrix object, go to MoGraph, Effector Plane, come to the parameters. We don't want to affect the position, we only want to affect the scale. Click Uniform Scale, and then put -1, which will shrink all of our clones down to 0. And we don't want these to be all shrunk down to 0 uniformly. We only want the ones outside of our little box field to be shrunk down uniformly. So if we come into our fall off, we can just drag in our box, make sure it's turned on. Now right now, it's actually shrinking down the ones in the middle. We want to shrink down the ones on the outside. So the way to do that is just click on your box field, and then you can just come down here and click Invert, and it'll do the opposite of what you had before. So now, when I play it, it's going to look like the clones are sort of growing where the ripple is and then disappearing again as it moves on. And my clones look kind of small. Right now they're just boxes, they're just instances. I haven't actually put anything in there yet, but you know, to affect that I could come into my matrix object here and I could make them a little bigger, make this like 2 by 2 by 2 or like 5 by 5 by 5 for now. So now it'll kind of beef them up a little bit. There you go. So these are just boxes. So how do I get this to look like plants that are growing? Well, that is pretty easy. All I did, now let me come into my other file here and just snag my object that I was using. So let's see. You just grab a few of these, put them in there. So what this is, I downloaded some textures from Megascans. I downloaded this peat moss texture. And it's really simple to use, but you can put anything you want in there. You can put triangles, squares, plants, anything. I just put a texture on a plane. All these are right here. Let me show you. It's just a tiny little plane that I sort of cut into the shape. And see, let's see. No. So all you need to do is take whatever object that you want to clone in here, go into the little Redshift tag, under the Particles section, change the Optimized Spheres into Custom Objects, and then take all of these and drag them in there. And then I change this from sequential to random, so it kind of randomizes a little bit more. And then let's open up our render view and see what that looks like. So I don't even have any lights in here right now. But you can see the clones of the moss that I put in there are now showing up where these little cubes would have been. And it's a lot lighter than if I'm using a traditional cloner. So let me actually just put a light in here so we can see more. Put a dome light, just go Assets, HDRI, Pro Studios, HDRIs. Let's put this one in here, just kind of my, just trim it down. So cool, now you can kind of see a little bit better what that's going to look like. Oh, so here's something I just noticed. This is another little problem-solving thing. So now that we baked this down, we actually lost our vertex map. So it's all gold right now. So the vertex map was on the original one, so we need to just put it on this one here. And that should fix it, right? If not, we can just redo it really quickly. Okay, so sorry about that. I figured out what was wrong with it. I didn't actually, I think my ramp had somehow gotten messed up. So when I came in here, I dragged my vertex attribute in again. It should have been working fine, and I just connected this to the out port, and it looks like it was working fine. And for some reason, the handles on my ramp here had gotten messed up somehow, and it wasn't showing up. But I just kind of played around with the ramp, and now I got it back. So it's looking the way that it should look. And I turn my matrix object back on, and I've got my plants. So another thing it's nice to do is these are all very uniform. So if I click on my matrix object, I can go to MoGraph Effector Random, and then the parameter, I don't want to change the position, but probably scale, maybe let's do like 0.5, it'll kind of randomize the scales a little bit. And then rotation, let's see, what's this one? Let's do like 360, maybe not that, maybe it's this one. Yeah, and like 10, and 10 there. It kind of randomizes a little bit more. These are huge right now because remember earlier I was kind of playing around with the scale in the matrix object. I think I made this 5, so I want to go back down to like 1, like that. And then let's make like a shit ton more of these. So 2,000, 20,000, what's that look like? Maybe 200,000. Cool. So that's basically what I did.